not sure how many. And yes, wanted to talk about her parents, and today I think it's just about her mother. Yes, she has invited friends and family to come along to listen. So welcome, Margie.
Once upon a time there were two families, poles apart in England. One family lived in the Tower of London in a cottage called Casemair, where a baby boy was born called Donald James McLean. His father was a sergeant at arms with his wife family qualified for the special accommodation within the precincts of the Tower. In his 60s, he visited his old home and told me how small it seemed compared to his earliest childhood memories. 6 years later, a baby girl called Leslie Margaret Ross was born in Cheshire. Her father was so excited by her arrival that he christened her in his parish church of England as a boy, Leslie, the boy's name, instead of the girl's. He was Canon Henry Nixon Ross, and she was Leslie Margaret. Both families were very hard up, but their children's educations were outstanding. Donald was born to a Scottish soldier, so from the age of 4 years was sent away to the Queen Victoria School for the sons of Scottish soldiers in Dunblane, where nowadays girls attend too, of course. Donald and his older brother Ernest were there as boarders right through to graduation. Leslie, on the other hand, was home tutored by Canon Ross, who had studied ancient languages at Oxford, Hebrew, Sanskrit, Greek, Latin, and Mandarin. He made use of the fact that she had severe curvature of the lumbar spine, with the tilting of the hips and shortening of one leg. Her lessons were held at home and also in the pony trap, while travelling around visiting his parishioners. A well-known orthopaedic surgeon, Sir Robert Jones, became responsible for her care from the age of 8 years old. She loved the special one-to-one exclusivity with her father and the freedom from formal schoolroom. Her reading and writing skills came about very rapidly when Cook lost her hearing. After that, all communications had to be written, so Leslie used self-raising flour while lying on the kitchen table practising her ABC. She was able to write to Gibby, the cook, by the age of 4. Mainly on the subject of food. Gradually, Canon Ross got her going on Latin and Greek, so that by the time she was 6 and the family transferred to Manchester, her declensions and knowledge of irregular verbs were flourishing. Sir Robert Jones ordered much hanging about from metal bars for her back, built up boots to be worn all the time, and then lots of lying flat on the floor. She said that she didn't mind too much because she still spent most of her time with her father, often in the pony trap, on his way round the Cheshire countryside. Otherwise, she would be in his study beside the enormous desk, surrounded by books and writing papers. She was very happy. They were always laughing. In fact, there was always laughing from everybody, including Leslie's brother, Philip St. John Ross, 10 years her senior. He was always away, with scholarships to Fettes College in Edinburgh and then Trinity College in Cambridge. But when he was around, there was usually something or other going on. While at Cambridge on scholarship, he kept a cow as a pet, just because he could. He had delved into the university regulations and discovered that cows were exempted from university restrictions. So he decided that he would have his own special pet cow at Trinity College. Presumably the long-suffering porters had to deal with the mess. When the German currency devalued so dramatically, he went over to Germany with many empty suitcases and stuffed them full of banknotes, brought them home to wallpaper his entire room, walls, doors and the ceiling. Alongside all the merriment, the canon kept a close close eye on both children's scholastic achievements, especially Leslie's. Every now and then he would organise a temporary enrolment at the local school when exams were in the offing. She would be plunged into the world of much older girls studying for their more senior exams. She was expected to take everything in her stride, and so she did. Her mantra was, if my father says I can do it, it being all sorts of things, then I can. Meanwhile, her poor mother suffered chronic asthma, severe pleurisy and pneumonia, plus 2 miscarriages during the next 5 years. The huge Victorian vicarage had been built by a wealthy parson with 10 children and 7 servants, and a duchess for a cousin. So he had 26 rooms on 3 floors and about 8 rooms in the cellar, where he had installed a coke-heated heater house and a Turkish bath. Despite such embellishments to the vicarage, in 1921 the doctor pronounced that the next Manchester winter would undoubtedly be fatal for Mrs. Ross. Mother and daughter had to travel to France every year from September to May, starting off at Mont d'Or, famous for the asthma cure, mud spas. Leslie's mother would have a terrible asthma attack on the journey over, and then on arrival be confined to bed, leaving tall, gangly Leslie to cope with the posh dining room on her own. 11 years old and dressed in a short gym slip over long black stockings, she walked in and everyone stopped talking, put down their cutlery and sat silently staring at her. The first year she was forced to try and eat an artichoke in front of all those strangers. Never ever having seen one in her life before, she certainly learnt that lesson thoroughly. She found the fur ball in the centre, managed to get rid of it out of her mouth, rushed out of the room, burst into tears and ran crying to their bedroom. But soon saw the funny side. There were gales of laughter from the 2 great friends safely bedded down in privacy. They knew that laughter was the only way to cope with all the trials and tribulations of such a strange life. The 2 shared a small bedroom and wash basin over 4 years in Poe, while Mrs. Ross kept in well health. They loved all the adventures and beauty of the Pyrenees. Their return to England every May was preceded by Easter further up in the mountains to help acclimatise to the cold of Manchester. Leslie's schooling in Poe was augmented each year in a high school in Manchester. In one way and another she achieved matriculation at the age of 13 and then went back to the same boarding school in Poe to study the first 2 years of the baccalaureate, studying language and literature with written and oral exams in 15 subjects. She attracted a lot of followers at the orals. Anyone could come in and listen. She now sported an Eton crop, the haircut of the time, and she wore le smoking, consisting of a black coat and skirt, white shirt and black bow tie. As they wandered the south of France, and as the exchange rate was so favourable, 200 francs to the English pound, they travelled on the Riviera. They made friends with 2 American officers who took her to the casino at Monte Carlo. She was 14 years old, but nobody twigged her young age. Very tall and slender, with a dinner jacket outfit and Eton crop, accompanied by the 2 Americans in their smart uniforms. Years later, here in Adelaide, there were American invited guests at Government House, as it was wartime. Leslie invited 2 of them to her aunt's house in Walkerville for dinner, and one of them teased her about the casino escapade. Back in the USA, his next-door neighbour had been one of the Americans who befriended Leslie and her mother all those years ago when they were trying out the Riviera for mother's health. He had accompanied the 14-year-old to the casino. Apparently the story did the rounds. The next year her mother's health was very bad, so she returned to Poe while Leslie boarded in a Spanish convent. She found herself having to speak, read and write French 6 days a week, with Spanish on Sundays. There she studied all art subjects, including fine arts, drawing, watercolour painting. She had a natural aptitude for music and finished the year as a proficient player of the Spanish guitar and piano. Every time the other students went down on their knees, so did she. She counted up. It was 22 times a day. And by the end of the year, she had sprouted giant corns on both knees. She had to stay on over the summer holidays until a letter finally arrived from her father. He had decided that she should study medicine, so that as a qualified doctor, she could look after her mother in the future. She must go to Paris, do the second half of the baccalaureate in order to commence her medical degree, also in Paris. What a shock. She'd never studied any science in her life. The nuns were horrified. You can't do medicine. A woman can't do medicine. They kept saying, if my father says I can, then I can. She packed up, went off home to Manchester to prepare for Paris in the second part of the baccalaureate, philosophy and sciences. Up to 16 hours a day she studied, fanatically driven on by her father's unswerving belief in her. She passed with flying colours and then began her first year as a medical student with over 1,000 others. Her number was 673, alongside Robert, number 674. Robert's father played the double bass in a very famous tango band, and Robert had spent a year travelling with him in South America. When he discovered that Leslie played the guitar and sang in Spanish, they decided to form their own tango band. They played nearly every night, then Leslie studied every day, and inevitably she overdid it, succumbed to a severe lung infection. Home she went to recover, and then transferred to Manchester University. 6 years later, she graduated with a Bachelor of Surgery degree. She said she applied and was accepted as house physician in a small new 150-bed hospital for 6 months. But first, as a treat, her mother suggested Leslie go off on a real holiday before starting work. Once again, they travelled together, but this time on board a cargo ship, the Elysia, out of Liverpool, around to Marseille. Leslie chose this cargo ship of the Anchor Line with only 20 passengers, and there she met Donald James McClugging, British Army officer, returning to join his regiment in India after long service leave. The three of them were inseparable, spent all their time together until she and her mother disembarked. 8 months later, they were married in Bombay Cathedral at noon on 13th of February 1936. Leslie was aged 26 and Donald 32. Their families were unable to attend the ceremony, but the officers off the same ship they had met on, the Elysia, were their attendants. Leslie wore a beautiful pink dress with black accessories. The second engineer gave Leslie away, and the purser was best man. The wedding photos are very funny with 6 male bridesmaids.